Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Indie Pop Girl, the podcast for music chat, new releases, hidden gems, and nostalgic deep dives. I am back with another throwback for you, and for this week, we're heading to the dance floor with one of my favourite electronic albums, Supernature by Goldfrapp. And before we get into the episode, if you enjoy music discussions like this, please consider following the podcast or leaving a like, depending on where you're listening. It really helps the show reach more people, and it means a lot for a small independent podcast like this one. Supernature is the third studio album by English electronic duo Goldfrapp. It was released on the 17th of August 2005 by Mute Records. It is the follow-up to their bold sophomore project, Black Cherry, which was released in 2003. The production was handled by Alison Goldfrapp and Will Gregory, and the mixing was provided by Mark Spike Stent, Jeremy Wheatley, and Dave Bascom. The record debuted at number 2 on the UK Albums Chart, and the duo received a Grammy nomination for Best Electronic Dance Album in 2007. Sonically, Supernature continues with the electronic pop lane that the duo featured on Black Cherry. But I would say that Supernature is less sexually aggressive than what was explored on Black Cherry. Alison's image is slightly softer, but she still captures a sensual energy in the album's iconic artwork. Alison explained in an interview with the Daily Telegraph that they never had intended to create pop music. The duo was inspired by the singles released from Black Cherry, which became popular in the clubs, especially in North America. On that basis, the duo decided to settle on a dance-driven electronic album. Madonna was famously photographed clutching a copy of Supernature during the preparation and rehearsals for her 2006 Confessions tour. Madonna was leaving a workout session holding a physical copy of the Supernature CD, and around the same time she explicitly praised Goldfrapp and named the record as her favourite album of 2005. Supernature and Confessions on a Dance Floor was released a few months apart, and even though the 2000s isn't my favourite era for music, I would say that this period felt like a bit of a shift, that the pop landscape was starting to change. Supernature was the record that made me finally sit and take notice of Goldfrapp. One of my ex-boyfriend's friends introduced me to the record. I was living and working in London at the time, and I remember having the album on my first MP3 player and listening to it all the time on the train. I was aware of Ooh La La, that song was everywhere, but I was blown away with the rest of the tracks. The Supernature tour was the first time that I saw Goldfrapp live. Me and the ex went to see them at Brixton Academy, and I just look back at this period with a lot of great memories. My 2005 pop holy trinity was Supernature, Confessions on a Dance Floor, and Playing the Angel by Depeche Mode. All released in 2005, and they were all in regular rotation for me, and they still are. What I really admire about Goldfrapp is that Alison and Will are not only insanely talented musicians and songwriters, but they really care about the visual presentation. All of their vinyl releases are absolutely gorgeous. The photography, colours and images are just well thought out and planned to precise perfection. I don't know how they do it, but if you just look at the front cover of a Goldfrapp album, you just get a clear indication of the sonic direction for that particular release. Another thing that I find impressive about them is that they never, ever make the same record twice. They switch up the sonic direction every single time, and they aren't afraid to experiment or try new techniques. And if it's good enough for Madonna, it's good enough for me. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, I will not be playing clips of the songs, so if you are curious, then please support the artists I cover by streaming, downloading, or buying physical copies. Thank you. Track 1, Ooh La La. I'm sure that you will be familiar with the song. It was released as the album's lead single and entered the UK singles chart at number 4. It is the first Goldfrapp song to feature the electric guitar, and the duo have described the song as a dirty, decadent homage to Mark Bolan. It follows on from the aggressive, sexual, electronic energy displayed in Black Cherry, but with Ooh La La, there is still some confident sexuality present, but the aggression is completely toned down. It's bouncy, fun, and playful with Alison's versatile vocal delivery. That electronic throb runs all the way through the track, and on the surface, it might seem quite simple and straightforward compared to the duo's previous efforts. But there is still a lot of substance, and the production is more complex than meets the eye. They managed to make the arrangement full and lush, and listening to this now, 21 years later, it still feels timeless, classic, and fresh. Alison's vocals switch with ease, from a breathy tone in the verses to her layered vocals in the catchy chorus. It's glam, but it's synth pop all at the same time. The inclusion of the electric guitar is just brilliant, and you can imagine T-Rex jamming to this on Top of the Pops in the 70s. It's got that classic energy, but with a modern twist. I love the music video directed by Dawn Shadforth. It captures the essence of glam rock in the 70s, Mark Bolan, Eno era Roxy music, and a bit of Bowie. Alison looks stunning. She really has such a presence in the Goldfrapp music videos. You really can't take your eyes off her. The scenes of Alison riding a sparkling digital horse could be a reference to future single Ride a White Horse, but it also reminds me of Kylie Minogue's intergalactic video to her 2020 single Say Something. Even Kylie's hair in that video is reminiscent of Alison's blonde curls for the Supernature era. Track 2, Lovely to See You. This is a high octane electronic track driven by sharp, jabbing synthesizers and a relentless pulsing bass line that mirrors the electronic glam pop style of the album's lead single, Ooh La La. This had a bit of a mixed response from the critics when the record was released, but I think it's still got some impressive production. I have revisited this album quite a bit in preparation for this episode, and to be honest, I never really paid attention to the lyrics, but reading through them recently just reminded me of Imaginal Disc by Magdalena Bay. My interpretation is that there seems to be a contrast between a sterile, manufactured world and a deep craving for a raw human experience. The combination of Alison's vocals, the production, and lyrical themes just put me in that imaginal disc space. You really could imagine Mika singing this track. Lovely to See You is catchy, upbeat, and the chorus is such an earworm. I guarantee you will be singing that hook for days. Track 3, Ride a White Horse. This track is an upbeat number inspired by disco. It's still got elements of synth pop, but Ride a White Horse has got this groove running through it. It's completely infectious, addictive, and it's one of those songs that gets better and better every time you play it. I always thought that the song title was inspired by Bianca Jagger's infamous entrance into Studio 54 on a white horse. Alison explained that the song also refers to other things, and she said that the Bianca Jagger moment didn't inspire her, but acknowledged that it was a memorable moment of the disco era. I think the track captures a lot of the essence of disco, and it's not meant to be taken seriously. You can interpret it as you will, but to me, it's just a bit of light-hearted fun. My interpretation is that Alison is using the disco and dance floor as a place of escapism, to escape from the mundane pressures of everyday life. The title of Ride a White Horse captures the blend of being taken to another world just for one night. The escapism, fantasy, glitter, and glamour are just too irresistible to refuse. The line in the chorus of "Lend me a whole new world all night, feel life" is that confirmation of losing yourself on the dance floor to escape the everyday pressures. The song is about freedom, and I think the build into the euphoric outro is a metaphor of that. It feels at the end of the song that Alison is indeed riding on that white horse into the glittery sunset. The music video, directed by Diane Martel, is absolutely bonkers. There is some surreal imagery present, and it's like the complete opposite of what the song is about, but it just works. Alison looks absolutely fucking stunning. Her presence in the video reveals her sense of humour and character. She looks like a true pop icon, a disco queen with her immaculate makeup and outfits. Remember, this was a few years before the arrival of Lady Gaga and the electronic dance revival trend that followed. Lady Gaga would later cite Goldfrapp as an influence and would personally recruit Alison and Will to remix her hit Judas in 2011. Track 4, You Never Know. There is a slight change of pace with You Never Know, but the track is full of gorgeous synths and those fucking amazing staccato strings. Alison displays her impressive vocal range, and honestly, I could listen to her sing anything. She is one of my favourite female vocalists. Her range, versatility, and her ability to switch up vocal styles is nothing short of mind blowing. Like Elizabeth Fraser of the Cocteau Twins, Alison also uses her voice like an instrument. She adds her vocals like texture, and I feel that is what she is going for in this track. There is quite a lot going on in terms of the production, but Alison and Will somehow make the track balanced. The strings complement the electronic arrangement. The track has got a dark undercurrent running through it, and the strings makes it dramatic and cinematic at the same time. If you listen closely on headphones, you can really hear the impressive synth work going on. I always thought, how are they going to be able to recreate this track live? But when I saw them at Brixton Academy, this track was part of the set list, and I didn't have to worry It sounded fantastic. Their performance of this during the BBC Six Music Live session is truly wonderful. It's on YouTube and worth checking out if you love live strings. Track 5, Let It Take You. We are fully in ballad territory with the record, but I feel this track is what Goldfrapp do so well. Sonically, it's stripped back compared to the previous four tracks, and I would say it's quite similar to some of the sounds explored on their debut Felt Mountain. It's drenched in atmosphere and subtle electronica, built on a simple piano line with a beep effect and a heartbeat style beat. It truly sounds magnificent on headphones. Alison's vocal performance here is more understated, but she works with the arrangement and production, and her voice sounds so dreamy. There is a subtle build in the instrumental break. The strings that come in, it's just wonderful. Again, it brings in a cinematic edge that I love. The strings do give me Felt Mountain vibes. It has that same level of subtle atmosphere. Alison uses her voice like an instrument in the song's outro. Her wordless, non lyrical style is very Elizabeth Fraser coded. It's probably one of the record's more underrated tracks, but one that slowly creeps upon you. I read that this track has never been performed live. Well, it's about time that changed. I would love to see Alison singing this with live strings, and I really hope we get to hear this gem live in the future. Track 6, Fly Me Away. This down tempo banger was released as the album's fourth single, and unfortunately, it didn't quite reach the same heights as the other singles. But I think it's a lovely song and still holds up all these years later. I think lyrically it continues with the same themes on Ride a White Horse, with the need to escape from the troubles and pressures of everyday life. Instead of using the disco and the dance floor as the location for that escapism from Ride a White Horse, this reads like going away to an exotic location with miles and miles of sun, endless roads twist on. The instrumental has that dreamy, laid back, carefree quality about it, and Alison's vocals match that dreaminess. She really has the voice for dream pop, atmospheric electronica, and uses a whispery register in parts of the song. If you have seen Goldfrapp live, then you will know that she can nail the operatic vocals with so much ease that just leaves you stunned. But she also knows when to pull back, and it's not always about delivering power with her vocals. She can be softer and it still has the same impact. It's difficult to pull off, but because Alison is so versatile, she can deliver anything and it would still sound amazing. I find it hard to believe that this record was released in 2005. Coming back to it recently has been like a breath of fresh air. Unlike many projects that was released during that time, this has aged like fine wine. And to be honest, the Goldfrapp discography is timeless. They don't follow trends, they just make the music that speaks to them, and it shows in their craft. And the bass during the outro, it's fucking disgusting. If you're listening right now and enjoying this, this is your cue to hit like before you forget. I really do appreciate all of the support. Thank you. Track 7, Slide In. I didn't realise how lyrically sparse this track is until very recently. But when you listen to it and get fully immersed in the sounds and production, you really don't notice it. Sonically, this is right up my street. It's got everything that I love about synths and electronica. There is vocal modification and possibly a vocoder in the mix, and so much going on with the arrangement. It's full and rich with sounds and feels so satisfying listening on vinyl or headphones. Lyrically, I think Alison is singing about sex and physical intimacy. The chorus of slide in, feel the future, rushing slowly, right now. It's obvious that she is referring to physical penetration. The rushing slowly could mimic the sensory distortion and overwhelming physical pacing of an orgasm or intense pleasure. There is also a plea for craving raw, authentic intimacy with the nothing makes me feel like show me real love right now line added in the second chorus. The slide in title could also be a reference of being at work in the studio. Alison and Will are accomplished musicians and producers in their own right, and often use a plethora of synths and equipment in their work. A mixing desk has sliding faders, and the feeling of creating pulsing electronic music could mimic that sexual rush that you would feel having an intimate encounter with someone. It's not the first time Goldfrapp have blended sex with synths and technology. Their hit Strict Machine from Black Cherry follows the same sexual metaphors in a dual meaning for falling in love with sound and technology. It's probably the most overtly sexual track on the record, not as aggressive as, say, some of the tracks on Black Cherry, but you can't deny how fucking fantastic the synths and how wonderful Alison's vocals are on this track, and it just gets better with age. Track 8, Coco. Coco is up tempo and carries on the theme about having fun and experiencing nightlife. The title is a reference to Coco, the nightclub and live music venue in Camden, London. The production includes what it seems to sound like a sitar, something completely unexpected that you wouldn't expect in an electronic record. There is truly some awesome synth work going on, and listening back to it now, it kind of reminds me of early The Human League and Gary Newman. Like I mentioned earlier on in the episode, Alison tends to use her voice less like a traditional pop singer and gives her vocals space and lets her voice flow like a fluid instrument. She sounds airy, breathy, and bathed in heavy reverb and delay. When the song hits the chorus and bridge, she leaps into her signature upper register falsetto. It has a operatic cinematic quality that cuts through the dense electronic production, shifting the song from a dark club vibe into a grand widescreen melodrama. It's something that is uniquely Goldfrapp. They make melodies that stick and are able to switch up arrangements in production with so much ease. They give you variety and keep the listener engaged. You really don't know what they're going to do next, and that unpredictability keeps the listening experience fresh and exciting. Track 9, Satin Chic. I read that Alison and Will have confirmed that Satin Chic is their favourite song from the record. They wrote the song at the end of Supernature's completion during the mixing stage. And I'm glad that they managed to include Satin Chic because it's wonderful. It's a bit bonkers, weird, and experimental, but it's got the Goldfrapp stamp all over it. There really is a lot going on with the arrangement. On paper, it all sounds like the biggest, hot fucking mess of all time. But I suspect Goldfrapp were up for the challenge to make this track work while mixing the rest of the record. Satin Chic is built on a two-step polka rhythm, a sleazy cabaret style honky tonk piano fills, which is reminiscent of early Elton John. And if that isn't enough, they throw in some distorted electronic fuzz guitars. It really shouldn't work, but it absolutely does. I can see why it's Alison and Will's favourite, and I assume it's one that they love performing live. I always appreciate tracks like this, which you could describe as a hodgepodge of ingredients. The bizarre mix of textures like this was not the 2005 musical landscape. Hearing this record back then was so refreshing. It made me have faith in pop music again because I felt like the wheels were starting to fall off at times back then. I am not saying it was all bad because there are some great moments, but the decade felt like it was all blurring, and I love that Goldfrapp were like, no, we're going to make music our way and to not follow what is trendy. And I love them for that. Track 10, Time Out from the World. So we slow things down with the penultimate track. This is the James Bond theme that never was. I had to do some research with this as I find it hard to believe they got overlooked. I found out that Goldfrapp actually came incredibly close to writing a James Bond theme, but they never made the final cut. The duo was in formal talks to write the theme for Casino Royale in 2006. Alison and Will are close friends with composer David Arnold, and he actively championed them to record the main title track for Daniel Craig's debut. Will Gregory later revealed in interviews that as the production developed, the producers decided to completely rebrand Bond as a darker, grittier, and more masculine character. They decided they strictly needed a male rock vocalist to cement this new tone, ultimately pivoting to Chris Cornell's You Know My Name. Goldfrapp fit the criteria in every way. The arrangement on Time Out from the World is absolutely beautiful. It's so dreamy and cinematic and feels like a direct homage to the classic Bond sound established by composer John Barry. Alison's soft, breathy vocal delivery is perfect. It has that sensual, dreamy quality that you would associate with the opening titles to a Bond film. Looking back now, I think Eon Productions really missed a golden opportunity. I get why they wanted a grittier cut, but honestly, Goldfrapp are made for film soundtracks. If I'm being overly picky, I feel that this track would fit in ending the record instead of the next track, number one. It's just got that final curtain feel about it. Would you swap these two tracks in the running order? I would love to hear from you. Track 11, number one. This was released as the second single from Supernature and was a commercial success. Like I said with the previous track, I think this one would work better as the penultimate song, but it's still great and has some lovely synth work. It's dreamy and quite soft, and it shows the romantic side to Goldfrapp. Alison matches that dreaminess with her vocals. She adapts a softer tone, and at times she also uses a lower register. This track isn't about the sweaty dance floor. Instead, the duo opts for a simple electro-pop rhythm and approach. It's quite understated, and as an album closer, you would expect a final resolution, a grand exit, or like I described in the previous track, a final curtain moment. But number one really doesn't give you that. It kind of leaves you hanging. It's a very Goldfrapp thing to do, and I suspect this was intentional. The music video, directed by Dawn Shadforth, is another bold visual statement. It seemed that Goldfrapp laid the groundwork with the human hybrid concept with Black Cherry in 2003. The artwork was dominated by wolves, and here the concept is now turned to dogs. It feels like a little callback to the previous era, but also a continuation. Alison's fascination with metamorphosis and the symbolism of animals. I feel like the visual side to Goldfrapp is like an extension to the songs. When you look at a Goldfrapp front cover, you know exactly what it's going to sound like. It might not be the typical album closer, but number one still has this lovely charm about it. And that synth melody line is absolutely irresistible. Supernature will always have a special place in my heart. It still has the same impact 21 years later, and one that I will return to over and over again in the many years to come. Upon its release, Supernature proved to be both a commercial and critical success. The album reached number 2 in the UK, achieved platinum certification, and went on to sell over 1 million copies worldwide, while earning Goldfrapp Grammy recognition along the way. Critics praised its fusion of electronic music and pop, and 21 years later, it still sounds remarkably fresh and forward-thinking. What makes Supernature so impressive is that Alison Goldfrapp and Will Gregory seem to be operating several steps ahead of the curve. Long before electronic dance music became a dominant force in mainstream pop, Goldfrapp were crafting sleek, sophisticated synth pop that felt glamorous, futuristic, and effortlessly cool. Looking back now, it's easy to hear the influence the duo would have on a new generation of artists, including Lady Gaga, who would go on to explore many of the same intersections between electronic music, fashion, and pop spectacle. The album's cultural impact extended beyond the charts too. I mentioned earlier on in the episode that Madonna herself was famously photographed holding a copy of Supernature, a fitting endorsement for a record that embodied the kind of reinvention, confidence, and dance floor energy that she had championed throughout her own career. 21 years on, Supernature remains a landmark electronic pop album. Not only did it capture the sound of 2005, it helped shape the sound of the years that followed. For me, that's the mark of a truly great record, one that still feels exciting, influential, and completely alive decades after its release. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If you've enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you could follow, like, or share, as it helps other music lovers discover my podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to the Indie Pop Girl podcast. It really helps the algorithm push the video out to more people, and as a small independent podcast that's still growing, every like and subscription genuinely makes a huge difference. I'm posting full episodes, shorts, and little teasers over there, so there's always something new to watch. Let me know in the comments if you love this record, And if you are a fan of Goldfrapp, I always read and respond to comments, and I love hearing what you all think. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at the Indie Pop Girl, and on TikTok at the Indie Pop Girl Podcast. And if you want to dive even deeper, there's a public Spotify playlist called Favourite Tracks from Podcast Episodes, where I add some of my top picks from each record I cover. It's updated as new episodes drop, so you might just find your next obsession. The Throwbacks will continue next week, and we're staying in 2005. I will be discussing a huge dance pop record from the Queen of Pop, and I can't wait to share it with you. Until then, I'm Rachel, the Indie Pop Girl. Thanks for listening. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.